Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us up to now. My first appreciation goes to Mkutano for having convened this meeting, and for all of you thereafter, especially the people who partook in discussing and the partners who helped in contributing. What I see here today is a very healthy conversation, a conversation that borders and surrounds all of us, our present and our future. It's a conversation between the public sector, the private sector, and donors and other people. This is our new normal. It is our new life, and we have to prepare for it. And so this conversation, many years ago, such conversations were only initiated and catered for by government. The other group that had the authority to cater for such were the churches and mosques. The private sector was absent. So this is showing you the new society which now we live in, and the capacity of the private sector to take care of many, many things that the public sector is no longer in. For those of you who are new in such matters, maybe I'll help clarify from a little bit of deep insight. About 1,000 years ago to almost 1,500 years ago, the biggest houses in the world were built by the temples or the mosques, the religious groups. It is because they had the capacity to do so. From 500 years ago, the biggest houses were built by governments, because by then, secular powers had come. The national armies in Europe, the governments in Europe came to be, and it extended to all over the world. Hitherto, it was the religious groups. From 100 years ago, the biggest houses in the world now are built by the private sector. Even in Kampala today, when you move around, you will notice that whereas Kololo and Nakasero were the best, today you have Moyenga, you have Bugolobi, you have everywhere. This is a sign of the strength of the private sector. For those who do not see this trajectory, they are making the biggest mistake. Just like 50 years ago, the biggest companies were car manufacturers. Today, it is Apple. It's software. And this dynamics, if is not noticed, then there is a problem. So where is the African trajectory? Having said that, and I know also about 50 years ago, America and Britain were the biggest countries in the world. Today it is China. China took over America. America is now number 2. Japan, Germany, the rest is in Asia. So what makes these changes? And where is Africa in all this, including your Uganda? This is the question. Yes, Africa and Uganda has developed and it's growing very fast, but in a changing world. And what is causing that change? In which direction? With what velocity? Are you serious? It must be industrialization? Or as the keyword says, it has to be eco-industrialization. And there is a meaning to it. Because industrialization is two things: either agricultural raw material or mineral raw material. So if you don't retain the supply of your raw material of agriculture, where will industry be? So the fact that we have to do eco-industrialism is the meaning of sustainability. And it is not an academic exercise. The problem is Uganda does not have many practitioners in industrialization. And that's why you still have non-Ugandans taking the greater share of industry. It doesn't matter which one. So where are the Ugandans, and where will industry be with Ugandans in 20 years' time? That is the question to ask. And I also want to ask you, can a country develop without industries? Is this possible? I know if you go to the Vatican, they do $15 billion a year. And it is only on 110 acres. And there are about 895 citizens, including one woman. The business is religion. They're not industrialized, but they're very rich. You go to Hong Kong, it is only 700 square kilometers. And my friend, I don't want to tell you how much foreign exchange reserve they have. And they're only 7 million. Income per capita, about $70,000 per year. Their industries are in China. They are a transit of money to the industries. And I can tell you about Monaco, about Mauritius, small countries which are taking over all these big countries which have industries. What is there for the problem, or what is the truth? Are we ready to understand that? I think that is what this discussion was about, and I'm glad that I listened carefully, first on Zoom and then down here. But still Ugandans are complaining. The human beings have been through the Stone Age, Bronze Age, and all these other ages. But they have never had such a comfortable life as Ugandans are having today. So why are we quarreling? What do we understand is the issue? And in Kampala, Uganda, the people who are rich are more unhappy than those who are poor in Karamoja. So is it a question of just riches? In terms of economic riches? Not social? Not spiritual? Just economic? Or is it the total wholesomeness of a human being that we are talking about? And that is what we should talk about. I think this should be what we should be touching and seeing how we should move. I am a practitioner in industry, so I can speak with a lot of confidence about what is happening in the industrial sector. I can proudly say that I'm one of the people who originated rice, including helping at that time the former vice president talk about rice. The origin was here. When the former vice president was talking about rice, we were only having 50,000 tons of rice a year, and we were importing 100,000 tons of rice. I mean, $100 million of rice every year from 2002. That's when I entered into rice. By 2013, we were only importing $35 million of rice, and we were already producing over 250,000 tons of rice. Last year, we went up to 400,000 tons of rice, but we had another problem. The Tanzanians beat us to our own game. So I can talk with authority and see the undulating and all these games that are played by industrial policies, shortage of certain things and surplus of others, to which we can borrow from and send to other areas. For instance, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Uganda has more money for development than it uses. Professor Fred Muhumuza here will tell you, he's one of the greatest economists we have, that as I speak today, the deposits in the banks are 34 trillion shillings. These are your deposits, which are in the banks, of which 17 trillion only was lent to the banks, to the businesses to use, which means that there was another 17 trillion shillings available, but not used. Our money as Ugandans, which is in the commercial banks. So why do you say we have no money when we have 17 trillion shillings available as deposits by Ugandans who cannot use it? And you want to borrow? Of course, for long term, that's fine. But for short term? So where is the problem? This is a very serious concern. Okay, the banks have loaned to the government 10 trillion, but there's still another 7 trillion, of which 4 trillion is in the central bank, and 3 trillion the banks even have no customers for. And we want to borrow. I'll tell you. Why this is happening is, first of all, Ugandans invest in consumptive commodities. Everybody wants to put money in what they call dead capital. You are talking of industrialization, but you want to build a house in Muyenga where you come home at 10 o'clock at night and you leave at 6 to go to work. You don't even sleep in it, but it has cost you 500 million shillings. So what is it for? And that house is enough to house a factory. And you have got a car or two, which could also be the same as a factory, but you'd prefer to buy a car and not put machines inside. And you are talking about lack of money for industrialization. Very good. This is your Ugandan reality. Look at Muyenga. How many factories would have been built by Muyenga alone? How many factories would have been built by Nalia? How many factories would have been built? And then how many more people would they have employed? And how much employment would it have increased if farmers supplied it and we exported? They are not practitioners, that is why they do that. And they are very much in a comfort zone of status. Status. That is our cultural problem. Omusajja azimba ennyumba. Omusajja alina motoka. Instead of saying omusajja alina factory, the question is omusajja azimba ennyumba. Just for sleeping, for the house girl to enjoy with the TV. Fantastic industrialization, isn't it? That's why me as a practitioner, I took it. Because the cost of my first machine was the cost of a car. I bought the machine instead. The cost of my factory building was the cost of a house. I built the factory. Today, I have 4 factories, and I have a very nice house. But I still have a 1993 car. I'll buy 1 year in 2 years' time. I'm not worried because I will still travel anyway comfortably. So the question is the attitude of the Ugandans in understanding industrialization and practicing it. The discipline is the practice. The thought process is all right. Execution, 0. That's your Uganda's industrialization practice. And I have very many friends who are in the same category, not mine. Those are the tears for Ugandans. I want to remind you again that if you, instead of drinking beer, decided to build houses for factories, let alone these houses, you'd have still built another amount of buildings enough for the factories. And the amount of money you use on MTN would have bought all the machines for the factories to process our products for export. But the MTN is for Gabozi, and the beer is to show off. That is your Ugandan construct, the mentality we have. Don't worry, this is just a techno. But I know how much people buy phones for. And yet, they can buy a factory they don't want to. So my issue here is how we're going to organize ourselves. Let me give you a couple of real situations. Right now, we have 27 gineries that can process 1 million bales of cotton. And that could earn us in the cotton lint about $300 million a year. Now, from the cotton seed, the soap, the cooking oil, and fertilizer, and animal feed, would also gross another $300 million. But last year, we only milled 57,000 bales of cotton because we did not organize the sector. There were no seeds. Every year, we import $370 million of cooking oil. There are 4 big factories in Lira and 48 small ones, which could process enough cooking oil for us and to export to Kenya, South Sudan, but they're at the moment operating at 10% because the farmers don't have the right seed of sunflower and soya. That is your reality here. We would have saved $370 million. The farmers would be the richer here, but we're happier making Pakistani and Indian farmers rich for sending us cooking oil. To me, as an industrialist, that is what I see. So, Karamoja has 3 million cows. We could have put a factory there for leather and also got shoes and belts and everything. But we want Van Hussein, we want our friends from Europe. So we have the raw materials to start with what we can do. Uganda has 16 million cows. This is much bigger. Britain has only 9 million cows. So we would be selling many more milk types to the world. Germany has 12 million cows. Even Canada has 9, but they have more money, these farmers. What's happening to ours? We're number 24 in the world in terms of cattle. So we should be the richest, one of the richest in the world. But because we are not industrializing, we don't make the money. So it's not that we don't have raw materials. It's not that there's no market. We have. So we need a greater conversation. We need more discussions so that we understand what we can do. Even the 34 trillion shillings, all the money that the banks give us is determined by the bank manager. The savings he has. But we can't access our total money because it's the bank manager to determine what money to give us and to give you. I think we need a greater conversation with the banks. So, ladies and gentlemen, this eco-industrial system and the building of sustainable systems is our responsibility and for nobody else but us. I don't blame government because many government officials do not know about industrialization. If they knew, they would have built factories, but they have not built factories because they don't know it, but they have cars. Even in the farms, when I go in the villages, I don't see the agriculture officers with a better farm than the village farmers. I'm beginning to question why. So what's happening to the civil service attitude is an issue. So, government is more organized, but can be better. The private sector is big, but not quite organized. It can be better. The only way to solve this is by continuing to have such discussions. These ones here, very honest discussions. Like what I'm telling you. You don't go to a doctor, then he tells you aspirin is your treatment when you have cancer. That's a very bad doctor. We need to talk the truths and get it done with. And then we can get the real message going. It is like these ladies, they know very well. If you tell her you love her, you better love her. Don't subsidize it with some things. Otherwise, there's a problem. So let us not subsidize the reality about our path to industrialization. And we go to the reality and define our strengths and weaknesses and come out clean. On that note, as the rep of OWC, I'm the principal advisor to Operation Wealth Creation, and so this is a very serious concern to us. I want to say that this has been a very successful sitting, and I'm most happy to close it on behalf of all of you, and I am sure the deliberations will continue well. Thank you very much. Asante sana. Travel in peace.
Thank you very, very much. A big hand clap for Ambassador Idro. Some very insightful and straight talking points. But that's what Operation Wealth Creation is about. We have to create it. All right. Thank you very much.